Tonight's story is about a woman who never imagined that her closest friend was quietly destroying her life piece by piece. Love, betrayal, and a silent fire of revenge that burns everything in its path. This is the Revenge Diary, and tonight, the truth finally comes out. People always greeted our house with the same tired compliment, "You two look like you've got it together." We liked the lie. I liked the rhythm of it: morning coffee, commuting, the shared smile over bills paid on time, and the small domestic things that pass for intimacy when you're married for long enough. My name is Maya. I'm 34 when this starts. My husband, Tom, worked in project management for a tech consultancy. The hours were long but steady. He was not heroic. He was reliable. That steadiness comforted me. It still does, when I let it. And then there was Ellie, my best friend since university, the girl who could coax me out of silence with a single text. She was a bright, relentless person. Quick laugh, quicker opinions, the kind of presence that filled a room. People loved her. Men found her magnetic. Women called her scene stealer with affection and a little frustration. We met through a seminar 3 degrees separate from anything we do now and, by accident and by design, became the kind of friends who finished each other's sentences and swapped keys like second hearts. Ellie moved into our street 2 years after Tom and I had settled into our house. It felt serendipitous, a friend nearby to fetch a parcel, to babysit once in a while, to trade recipes with. She arrived with a battered bike, a cat that hated me, and a CV that screamed ambition. She had a job in PR that suited her: social, loud lists, invitations to openings that smelled faintly of cheap champagne and too much perfume. It felt like we'd always been meant to be neighbors. At first, everything about her was convenient and glowing. She would appear with sourdough and gossip. We would watch Netflix and critique actors' life choices as if that were the sort of moral coaching adults needed. She knew when to call and when to leave a message. She brought wine when I'd had a bad day and knew exactly which rant would make me laugh until my chest hurt. I loved her in a way that felt instinctive. She was the sister I'd chosen. We shared secrets the way people hand over warm things, with ease and without counting the cost. I told her about missing my mother, about the quiet fretting I did at 3 a.m. when Tom worked a late shift. She listened like it was the thing she had been built for. She celebrated our little victories: the mortgage paid off a month early, the promotion Tom got the year he turned 30. I believed she felt happy for us. I wanted to believe it, and for a while, I did. It's important to understand what ordinary trust looks like, because betrayal rarely arrives in dramatic tapes and midnight confessions. Most of the hurt in my story began in the mundane. Small unmet expectations. Little absences. I didn't notice them at first because the life we had was loud enough to drown out quiet concerns. Work changed Tom. Not in ways that suggested infidelity or secret life, but in ways a steady woman might mistake for growth: longer hours, business trips, sudden dinners with colleagues. He started to be more guarded about his phone. He would leave it face down on the counter as if that posture protected something he shouldn't say. He said he was tired. I listened and poured tea. Ellie was always there for the overflow. She would text, "How are you really?" and I would unfold into paragraphs. She became the ear that held my unsaid worries. When Tom and I argued, she would sit by my door with tea and validation. "You deserve better," she would say, and the phrase slid into my mind until I wanted to believe it. The comfort of an ally is a slow narcotic. There were tiny warning signs. A misplaced receipt from a bar on a Friday night, a lipstick smudge on a shirt pocket I hadn't noticed, the occasional unreturned call. Each time I mentioned these things to Ellie, she would nod and steer me away. "Stress," she'd say. "Everything's been stressful with him lately. Don't be dramatic." Her voice was steady, surgical. I accepted the diagnosis, because who wants to be the person who insists on pain in a relationship everyone else assumes is fine? She had a way of reframing my doubts into character tests. If he's the man you think he is, he'll stand up to rumors. If he won't, that's his problem. I wanted to be a person who believed in higher, more forgiving explanations. That's who'd always been. It made it easier to live with. We were 34 when things fell apart. The collapse didn't have the melodrama of thrown plates or blackouts. It had the quiet efficiency of an office memo. It began with a message on my phone, a photo of Tom standing at a friend's wedding, arm around a woman I didn't know. The caption on the group chat read, "Crackin' smiles. Tom's a top bloke." I stared at that photo until the edges went soft. She wore his laugh like a borrowed scarf. There was a strange intimacy in the shoulder lean, an ease close to something I had not recognized for months. I didn't shout. I didn't storm the house. I called Tom at once, small questions, a voice that tried for normality and landed somewhere shaky. He said the woman was a colleague, a new hire on a client account. He said the night had been fun, that he'd had too many canapes. He sounded rehearsed. I accepted his explanation because I wanted to. That night, I told Ellie nothing. The temptation to be dramatic walked around our kitchen like a cat, and I refused to let it scratch me. The next week, a quiet thing happened, an email from HR asking if I might be willing to be a reference for Tom. He hadn't told me. I replied automatically in the affirmative, and on the same day found a note tucked into the hollow of my garden gate. "Maya, call me. I need to talk. E." The handwriting was small and urgent. She came over like a gift with edges. We made tea. She sat across from me and looked, for the first time in months, like someone holding too many truths in her hands. She reached across and squeezed my knee. "You should know," she said, and paused as if to let the sentence be a slow blade. I saw Tom. He was with someone last week. Not a colleague. She swallowed. She's been seeing him for months. My heart moved in a way I didn't recognize. It didn't leap, it rearranged. Betrayal is a pragmatic thing when it arrives from the mouth of someone you adore. I'd expected drama. I expected rage. Instead, I found myself counting the words and the small, mechanical facts. "Why didn't you tell me earlier?" I asked, because that's what living people ask when they want to feel like they were invited into an explanation. "Because I didn't want to break you," she said. I was trying to be careful. Her eyes were that steady, bright thing again. She had that protective tone. She set up a narrative in which she had been our guardian angel, the friend who had known but held back to spare me. I wanted to accept that story the way you take a painkiller, because it seemed merciful. We made plans, confrontations, cold brunches, proofs. She said she could help me find evidence. She said she would come with me if we decided to speak to Tom. She said, "We'll handle it." Her calm was a balm. I leaned on it until the muscle of my trust hardened again. Only much later did I realize the shape of the lie, how well it had been built to support itself. For now, the affair was a problem that needed solving. We felt like a pair of soldiers, and the enemy was an imagined dishonesty with a strict timeline. That evening, I searched the places people hide, phone messages, social media comments, the indirect digital footprints that lovers leave. I found a photo on a holiday website, Tom in what looked like the early days of summer, the same laugh, the same woman. I screenshot it. It was a small, ugly thing, proof of something that was, if not conclusive, worrying enough. I showed Ellie. She studied the image like a surgeon inspecting a wound. "There," she said softly. I told you. I told you." She hugged me and that night stayed until 2 a.m., whispering strategies, constructing scenes of confrontation and moral justice. She made me feel like I was not alone. In the cold light of the following week, I saw them together in the office canteen, Tom, glancing like a man with something to hide, the woman, with the ridiculous composure of someone certain she had things to win. I felt, at that moment, a primitive animal needed to claw something back. The rawness of that instinct is not pretty. It is honest. Ellie prepared me. She suggested approaches, leaked emails, public confrontation, the humiliating clarity of exposure. She sketched out reputational damage like a trade in the city. Her suggestions were surgical: social consequences, logistical inconveniences, professional pressure. She had resources. She had ideas. She had the inveterate, gleeful capacity to take a problem and contour it until it looked like punishment. And I listened. Because the part of me that remembers being 30 and alone was tired of being timid. Because the part of me that wanted to be loved deserved to be defended. I did what any human would do. I started to plan with her. Revenge stories on television often give you the dramatic moment, the screaming in a restaurant, the blackmail note, the climactic reveal. Real revenge is less theatrical. It's patient. It's arithmetic. It builds the way rust builds inside a buried machine. We decided on a plan that, in retrospect, was a map of moral compromises. Ellie would create small, credible cracks in Tom's professional standing. She had a friend in the firm that handled PR for some of Tom's clients. That friend, a woman named Lorna, was a natural funnel. She could seed doubt by raising concerns in the right ears. It was ambiguous, the kind of maneuver that looks like prudent management rather than malice. I felt the edges of my conscience as we walked down that path. Each small pretext we used was justified by the injury we believed had been done to me. We told ourselves the story of proportionality. A wrong deserved carefully calibrated consequences. We named our action accountability and dressed it in civil language. That is how people permit themselves to do hard things. We began to execute. Ellie fed casual anecdotes to Lorna. She mentioned Tom's unexplained absences, his possible conflicts of interest, the worrying presence of a new client contact. Lorna, efficient and bored, nudged the right managers. Emails were sent asking for a review of Tom's latest accounts. Nothing overt, just questions. A review in a consultancy can be a scalpel. A cautious manager will make the kind of request that leaves a paper trail. Tom, bewildered, called me from his office one evening. "They're running a formal review," he said. He sounded small. I had not expected that. I had imagined a satisfying ripple of discomfort. Instead, it felt corrosive. "You okay?" I asked. The voice on the other end was a man discovering his life was not invulnerable. "Yeah," he said. "I'll get through it. It's nothing." I wanted to feel triumphant. I felt hollow. Revenge is never exactly the taste you imagine. As the review progressed, small things happened at home. Tom was distracted. He came home late more often, then later still. The woman I'd seen in photos began to show up more in his calendar. Dinners, client meetings, the little dinners that change into an arrangement because you allow them to. He was defensive, prickly, and less communicative than before. We fought rarely, like adults trading barbed taxonomies of blame. I started to sleep badly, counting not sheep but permutations of humiliation. Meanwhile, our plan continued. Ellie was careful. She leaked nothing that could be clearly traced to me. She used intermediaries who had plausible deniability. People who have professional reputations to lose are careful and ruthless. The firm moved like a bureaucracy: emails, interviews, spreadsheets. I watched from a distance while my life was rearranged into evidence. Then there was the day when Tom's laptop, one he used for work, was left at home because he was working from the kitchen, and a file appeared on the cloud, an expense form with dodgy entries and late invoices that did not match supplier records. It was enough, combined with the questions Lorna had been fanning, to escalate the review to an audit. Suddenly, Tom's performance seemed less like a problem with his calendar and more like a pattern. The pressure did something unglamorous. It broke him into parts that didn't belong to me anymore. He became a man of apologies and blank expressions, a person who smiled at the notion of support but did not know how to accept it. I was there, always there, the dedicated partner, but also, in my chest, a coldness that was growing like frost along a window pane. My friends began to pick sides in the quiet way England does, polite, careful, with a thin veneer of dinner party civility. Ellie's presence at our house became less that of a confidant and more that of a consultant. She would bring over spreadsheets on damage control, references on reputation management, and, disconcertingly, invitations to social events where she could demonstrate I had not been destroyed by this. People complimented her on how she handled me. I should have seen how strange that felt. Instead, I welcomed the attention, the proof that someone was fighting on my behalf. It is a small comfort to be defended. There were nights when I would wake to the sound of Tom at the kitchen sink, the water a steady, useless thing that did not wash away our problems. He cried once, quietly, the kind of sound men are rarely permitted to make. I sat in the doorway and watched the slow fall of his shoulders. Guilt aired in the way that grief suggested a possibility of repair. I wanted us to be whole again. I wanted, selfishly, to be believed. Then, the slow unraveling of trust reached an ugly knot. An email, sent from an account we later discovered had been created to mimic a client, accused Tom of mishandling a contract. The firm suspended him pending the outcome. The press, smelling scandal in a small town of professional lives, began to circle with the tenderness of vultures. My phone rang constantly. I felt, absurdly, that my body had become the center of a storm I had set in motion. Tom's colleagues gave him the same phrase over and over. "We'll wait for the facts." It is a decent phrase, it buys distance. The facts, when they travel through corporate processes, come with a momentum of their own. They crush, slowly, like the weight of winter on a thin roof. What I did not anticipate was how much the process would change him and how much it would change me. We became two people living parallel lives under the same roof. One man who moved as if his life had paused between frames, and one woman who learned cold calculation by degrees. I started to watch his face the way a detective watches a suspect, searching for patterns, for inconsistencies. I began to catalogue his movements like evidence. And in the middle of this, the truth about Ellie started to piece itself together in corners I had refused to visit. I found a receipt in the back of a book I'd given Ellie once for her birthday, a dinner at a restaurant I knew she occasionally mentioned, and the date matched one of Tom's absences. I found a message on a private account that had been left open on Ellie's laptop for a few careless minutes, a shorthand exchange between two people discussing keeping it quiet. I told myself that these were coincidences. I wanted to be charitable. The more I wanted to salvage a life, the more I closed my eyes. One evening, when rain had made the glass of our windows into wet ink, I sat with a glass of wine and looked through Ellie's messages that had been forwarded to me accidentally, a mistake born of her carelessness, a slip that opened the door no force could have otherwise. The messages were not explicit at first, they were the architecture of deception, an account used to coordinate rendezvous, half-joking messages about covering for Tom. Threads about timing and when the firm starts asking questions. There were references to dinners that looked like team nights and suggestions about how the audit would be managed so that a suspension would do the job quietly. I remember the exact way my hands went cold. It was an animal reaction, not a scream, not a rage, an abrupt, blunt clarity. Ellie was not the steady friend. She was, by every ledger of the moment, the person who had engineered the conditions making Tom vulnerable. She had been the axis, I had been the orbit. I confronted her only once. The confrontation was not cinematic. It was calm. I wanted it that way. I wanted to be the person who asked short, precise questions and listened for the tremor that would betray a lie. "Why?" I asked. She looked at me like a doctor looking at a diagnosis. Her voice was youthful and cold at once. "You were always going to be left holding the pieces," she said. "He was slipping anyway. He needed a push so he could either fix himself or fall. It was messy, but necessary. You put me through this," I said. "All of it. The audit, the suspension. You set him up." She smiled in the small, patronizing way she had perfected. "I did what had to be done," she said. "Sometimes people need to lose their footing so they can see where they stand." I felt the ground under me shift, not because of what she had done, but because of the dismissal in her tone. There was a casual cruelty there, dressed in the assertiveness that had charmed me into trust. She didn't deny it. She didn't need to. Her confession was hidden inside the way she refused to take responsibility. The truth is a thing that makes you small. I had become a woman with a dismantled marriage and a friend who had orchestrated the ruin with surgical hands. I wanted nothing so much as to shatter her the way she had shattered me, but I had learned in the last months that shouting never fixed anything. It only made more noise. So I changed course. I stepped away from chaos and decided to plan in the quiet. If revenge is an art, it is one practiced in thoroughness. You cannot build a lasting ruin of someone's life with cartoons and rage. You need patience, documentation, facade, and the ability to turn a person's strengths against them. Ellie had one enviable strength, her reputation. Her career in PR was built on managing images, cultivating narratives, and orchestrating appearances. She was, in short, a mistress of optics. Her social currency was glamour and influence. The plan I sketched in the months after her confession was to apply those skills outwardly so they would become the medium of her collapse. First, I put myself in the place of someone with nothing to lose. That takes a peculiar courage, because it means embracing the parts of your life that frighten you and using them as tools. Tom was suspended. He was fragile and angry. I tended to the household, signed forms, answered lawyers' calls with the calm of a trained receptionist. I learned to speak in the rhythm of evidence. It was necessary because any misstep could expose us both to more ruin. While maintaining the veneer of the grieving partner, I assembled a ledger of facts. I collected timestamps, receipts, photographs, the same quiet, steady accumulation that had been used against Tom, but this time with surgical intent and ethical clarity. I made sure everything I recorded was defensible. I have always believed that moral high ground is best defended by clean hands. Then I started with the small public moves. Ellie had a flourishing Instagram full of events, perfect brunches, and those staged photos that make a life look effortless. She'd spent years cultivating it. She used it to work and to be admired. That was where she was most vulnerable. Her persona relied on the public's acceptance that she was charming and successful. I chose optics as the place to strike. Working slowly, carefully, I created an alternate narrative. The first step was to introduce doubt into the small networks that reinforced her image. People who attended the same events, suppliers she used, collaborators who gave her referrals. The method was surgical, not slanderous. Where Ellie had used insinuation and anonymous channels to nudge a corporation, I used clarity and evidence to nudge social circles. I reached out to a former collaborator of Ellie's, a floral company she used for shoots. I sent them a straightforward message: "We have evidence of invoices you billed as event supply for Ellie which were never delivered. We'd like to confirm before escalating." I enclosed the receipts I'd gathered, professional and calm. The florists were shocked. They had been used by Ellie to create the illusion of events. They checked their own books and found inconsistencies. The small clients she had leaned on to prop up her brand suddenly produced emails that showed they had been asked to pretend an event occurred. The principals were embarrassed. I didn't use threats. I asked questions. I let her network do the unraveling by simply verifying their records. People who lie to cover organizational gaps crumble under scrutiny. When the florist reached out to colleagues, questions multiplied. Ellie's events were not always events. They were, occasionally, staged shoots billed as collaborations. That's a minor professional sin. It is not, by itself, ruinous. But when patterns are collected, they become a different animal. This is the key. Reputations are ecosystems. If you plant a seed of doubt and then water it with facts, the ecosystem collapses under its own contradictions. I had a ledger, and I had restraint. Restraint is important in long revenge. It stops you from being captured by your own fury. While Ellie's suppliers rechecked their paperwork, I worked quietly to remove her anchors. I sent a friendly, factual email to a journalist who'd been flattering her work in the local magazine. I wanted to flag some irregularities in events credited to Ellie Haynes' PR. I'd be happy to share documentation. It was a sober message that did not use inflammatory language. The journalist, bound by the professional ethics of fact-checking and fearing the reputational damage of being wrong, asked for corroboration. I supplied it. He paused, and the piece that had been waiting to run in a month was deferred. At every stage, I refused to be ugly. I refused to lie. My method was to let the natural, bureaucratic momentum of truth take hold. I wanted people to see the pattern and then make the rational choice to distance themselves from Ellie. I wanted the professionals who had decorated her life to be forced to examine their own roles. Ellie noticed that the supportive architecture of her world faltered. Her tone became clipped when she visited our house. She started showing up late to the small dinners I arranged. I kept my face neutral. I let her flail inside ever smaller circles of acquaintances and suppliers who no longer wanted to be associated with shaky projects. She began to get fewer invitations. Her Instagram, once a carefully curated feed of success, developed gaps. People stopped liking certain posts. They muted her. But social muting alone would not be satisfying. Ellie's pride came from power. She liked being the person in the room who determined whose voice mattered. So I targeted what she loved most next: her clients and her reputation among editors and agency contacts in London. Using the documented evidence of staged events and misbilled invoices, I approached a mid-tier client she depended on. The approach was quiet and painfully polite. "We're checking something that might affect your contract," I wrote. I attached facsimiles that showed patterns. They, too, checked. Clients, like investors, are risk-averse. The idea that someone might be misrepresenting deliverables is a red flag they cannot ignore. The client politely severed ties pending an investigation. Word travels quickly in PR circles. Reputation is a fragile currency. The cascade began. As her client base shrank, Ellie responded the way some people do when pride takes fire: with anger first, with bargaining second, with flattery later. She called me one night, voice brittle and blaming. "You're ruining me," she said. "I'm revealing the truth," I answered. My voice was flat. "I'm not ruining you. You made choices. You did this to hurt me," she said. "You hurt me first," I said. "You destroyed my marriage." She accused me of hypocrisy. She told me I was petty. She threatened, in the mild way people make threats when they still expect social protection, to make me look bad. She tried to manufacture sympathy. It didn't land the way she expected. Around this time, my life became a study in the curious phenomenon of public empathy. People who had liked Ellie's photos now found themselves guilty about having been charmed. They did a small, English kind of distancing, a polite unfriending, an awkward glance at the school gate. The PR firm that had once sent her glossy invites now sent form letters. She no longer got the easy coverage. She tried to buy influence with small gifts and apologies that were too late. I did one final thing that required both resolve and moral clarity. I wanted her to feel the interior loneliness she had created for me. Not public shaming. That was too easy and brutal. I wanted the people who mattered to her to look at her and see someone who had not been entirely honest with them. So I compiled a single, calm dossier summarizing the discrepancies, the invoices, the receipts, the messages, and sent it to a senior editor at a national trade magazine that relied on trust for its stories. The cover I had in mind: a sober examination of small-scale misrepresentations in the events industry that used Ellie's case as an example. It was journalism, not vendetta. The editor called me weeks later. "We need to verify," he said. I sent everything. The writer did not invent a scornful piece. He wrote an analysis that was chilling in its clinical clarity: how small lies become structural problems, how charm can enable dishonesty. Ellie's name was used, carefully, as part of a larger pattern. The article was not a torch, it was a ledger. It landed like a letter that only the people in that industry could read in full. When it ran, Ellie's career took a hit that was professional and, more importantly to her, personal. She lost clients. She had to explain to people she loved that her work had been questioned. She called me twice a day in those weeks. I answered once, then twice, then less. The calls became less angry and more desperate. The woman who used to hand me flowers now left her own flowers on our doorstep with notes begging for reconciliation. I left them on the kitchen table and did not pick them up. The sweetest part of any revenge is not the downfall itself, but the moment the person understands exactly why they are falling. I wanted Ellie to see that the tools she had used against me, manipulation, optics, carefully placed rumors, had been turned back against her by the very mechanism she had worshipped. I wanted her to understand that the world she'd built on performance could be dismantled by truth. And then something complicated happened. Tom's case was resolved. The audit found that some of the supposed irregularities had been human error and poor record-keeping, not fraud. He was reinstated with a caution and a support plan. It should have been an ending. Instead, it was a test. There is no neat reconciliation when betrayal has been fundamental. The thing that occurred was quieter and more honest. Tom and I sat across from each other, older in ways that required explanation. He asked one night, during a long silence, "Did you ever love me after you found out?" I thought of the months of calculated action, the ledger, the way I had used evidence as both weapon and shield. I thought of the nights I had cried alone and the mornings I had learned to be clever. Yes, I said. I loved the man who trusted me. But you and Ellie made different choices. He nodded. I am sorry. It wasn't enough, but it was a beginning. We never had a final outburst. Instead, we had a series of ordinary negotiations, therapy, boundaries, promises that looked like building projects. I wanted to rebuild myself, my life, a marriage not based on complacency but on clear sight and better communication. He wanted the same, and the fact that we were both willing to try mattered. As for Ellie, her fall was not total. People can be resilient. She found work in the media world again, but in the quieter part of the industry, where the stakes were smaller and the ads were less glamorous. She learned, as we all do when the scaffolding falls away, what her true skill set was. She could organize, she could pitch, she could charm on a smaller scale. But the easy margin of her old life, the invitations, the effortless network of admirers, was gone. I could have broadcast her ruin. I could have taken a theatrical bow and told everyone in the parish the story of her cruelty. I did not. There is a measure of victory in restraint. What I did was make sure that if she wanted to rebuild, she had to do it with honesty rather than spectacle. In the months after, we were ghosts in each other's lives. We passed in the street with the odd, polite incline that means I see you and I remember. We exchanged civil emails when our shared responsibilities, like communal gardening or the cat she left when she moved, required it. There was no triumphalism. Revenge, as I had practiced it, was not a parade. It was a cold, exact answer. It corrected a wrong with a proportional response and then allowed space for the person harmed to choose how to live next. Sometimes, when I walk past a cafe where she once posted pictures of her lunch, I think about the shape of justice. It's not a satisfying thing. It's procedural and mundane. It's letters and emails and invoices and the slight silence when invitations stop. It's a ledger and a refusal to be easy prey. My marriage, after all this, was not returned to the naive place it had been. It was different, better and worse in ways that will probably take years to settle. Tom and I learned to be more specific about small things, to name slights before they became grievances. We built rules about honesty that had teeth. If either of us kept a secret for more than a week, we agreed to be honest with each other about why. We went to therapy. We stopped asking others to be judges for our private quarrels. And Ellie, she sent a message almost a year later, the kind you send when you have cleaned your house and found her old life in broken pieces. I'm sorry, she wrote. I was selfish. I didn't think of the damage. I don't expect anything. I didn't reply. Sometimes, the most final answer is silence. There is a moral in this that other people will try to make tidy. Don't betray, cheat and you'll pay. But life rarely reduces to morals. What I learned is that trust is architecture. When someone undermines its foundation, you can either stand among the rubble and scream or you can build with careful hands. I chose construction, and part of that construction was giving someone back a measure of what they had made by choice, the loss of a life built on optics, the requirement to rebuild with less ease and more truth. In the end, revenge tasted less like victory than like survival. The satisfaction was not fireworks but a slow, practical sense that I had returned the ledger to the right balance. Ellie had been powerful because she manipulated the stories others would tell. I made sure she had to answer to different stories, the ones facts make inevitable. I still see her sometimes at the school gate, hair shorter, laughter quieter. We don't speak beyond a basic nod. Once, we made eye contact long enough to allow something like recognition to pass between us, the knowledge that we had both been younger once, and that younger person made choices now aged into consequence. If someone were to ask me whether I had enjoyed the process of revenge, I would say no. It was not entertainment. It was laborious and costly, and it hollowed me in ways I didn't expect. But if they asked whether I believed it was necessary, I would say yes, not because revenge is moral by default, but because sometimes, in a neighborhood of polite silences, you have to make the truth visible. That is the only currency that lasts. This is the story of how my best friend helped destroy the life I had built and how I learned, with painstaking care and without the melodrama people expect, to put the pieces back together. It is not a tale of triumph so much as a ledger closed, a life accounted for, consequences applied, and a quiet, clean space left to rebuild. There's one final detail. After all this, when Tom and I celebrated our 10th anniversary quietly with fish and chips and a bottle of cheap wine, Ellie sent a message: "Congratulations." It was simple. No flourish. No claim. I thought about replying. Then I did what people do when they are certain of themselves but still given to mercy. I put the phone face down and held Tom's hand. The best revenge, I have learned, is a life well lived afterward. Maya.